All right, let's talk about some pilgrims from the prologue. So you guys all had to research a specific pilgrim, and now we're going to talk about some of the just important ones for test purposes, quiz purposes, and just kind of general knowledge things. So first off with the prologue, right? So Chaucer is using this framing narrative. He has all these pilgrims that are staying at this inn together. They're on their way to go see the shrine of St. Thomas of Becket, and whoever tells the best story, the host is going to buy them dinner. So we have this framing narrative. We have like stories within stories, right? Because we have this big story of all the pilgrims, and then each pilgrim has their own story that takes place. It's happening in April, like we talked about. It's time of rebirth. It's time of spring. We already talked about kind of how crappy the world is at the time. And yeah, so this is important for them. So there's about 30 people. That includes the narrator, and we're going to talk about a couple of the specific ones. So the knight, he's part of that feudal level, right? He's very chivalrous. He's courteous. He's truthful. He's honorable. He's generous. He's an incredible soldier. He's fought in all these battles. He doesn't dress super nicely. He actually dresses really modestly, which shows us that, he's dressing below his station. So for Chaucer, that means that he's important, right? He's a good man. He actually believes in, what he's doing. He's going to the shrine of St. Thomas of Becket to give thanks for the fact that he survived these wars. So again, it's showing how humble he is, right? He's not saying that he survived because he's so awesome and he's like jacked and built. He's saying that he survived due to God, right? And he wants to give thanks to that. The squire is the knight's son. He's much younger, and he's kind of a dandy. He can sing, he recites poetry, he jousts, he dances, he draws. He chases ladies, that kind of thing. He's a soldier, but unlike his father, he hasn't served in battle, so he hasn't been proven. And he represents this kind of idea of courtly love. He's going to have much more fashionable clothing, that kind of thing. And he's supposed to basically function as a younger version of the knight. The knight used to be what the squire is, and then what the knight is right now, this kind of great man who's courageous and humble, the squire will become one day. So both of these, I would say that Chaucer is actually probably pretty fond of. He doesn't seem to dislike them the same way that he does some other characters. The yeoman, and again, still part of this feudal aspect, he works for the squire and the knight. He's dressed in green. He has a bow and arrow for hunting, a shield, a sword, and short dagger. He is dressed appropriately to his station. This is what he's supposed to look like. He wears a St. Christopher's medal, who's a patron saint of travelers, to protect him, again, showing that he seems to be devout and kind of focused on God. So we've got the knight up here, right? We've got the squire down here and the yeoman. So just showing kind of the hierarchy of this feudal system. And then, of course, like landed, inherited titles would be above the knight, and then we got the king all the way at the very top. The nun is the start of the ecclesiastical, so looking at the church. And generally, Chaucer didn't seem to feel too strongly about he didn't like the church. He felt strongly about it for sure. But he tends to think that they're hypocrites. So the nun is called Madame Eglantine, and she sings and she speaks French, but she doesn't do it very well, and she doesn't sing very well. So there's this idea that she's like kind of putting on airs. She has these crazy good manners, but they're fake, right? Counterfeit a courtly kind of grace. That's, counterfeit is lying. So it's more of like she's putting on airs as opposed to like she's actually well-bred. She wears a lot of jewelry, a brooch and a coral trinket, both of which would be far too expensive for a nun. So she's dressing, unlike the knight who dresses below his station, she's dressing above her station and kind of showing us that she's not necessarily as pious as she should be. And she has this pet, and she's, feeding it all this expensive food while we have people that are starving. Again, something a nun shouldn't be doing. People should obviously take precedence over animals if you're a nun. And, Chaucer doesn't hate her, right? He's making fun of her for sure. She's a bad nun, but she's not necessarily a bad person, as, some of the other characters that he really doesn't like. The monk is, again, another example of like a really bad monk. He loves to hunt. He's tan because he's outside hunting all the time. Um, and when he should be inside praying, right? Monks aren't supposed to be tan because they're supposed to be indoors praying all the time. He's fat, right? Which means that he's eating a lot of expensive food. Again, something a monk shouldn't be doing. He's dressed above his station, much like the nun. He's got fine gray fur around his sleeves, a gold pin at his chin. Again, like the nuns' trinkets. This is too expensive for a church man. And again, he's not necessarily a bad person. He's just a bad monk, right? Monks aren't supposed to be outside and like rich food and like, expensive stuff. They're supposed to take vows of poverty, and they're supposed to, kind of practice this idea of like withholding, right? They're not supposed to want things. The friar is a bad person. His name is Hubert. He's a traveling priest. He preaches and gives forgiveness. And he basically just goes around sleeping with all these pretty girls, which is absurd, and kind of makes him a bit of a monster. He's definitely a character that Chaucer doesn't seem to like. So the friar claims to have a special license from the Pope to hear confessions. We don't actually know if that's true. It's, or so he said, with more than priestly scope, right? And what he would do is, rather than telling people to pray or to be better people, he would instead say that they should just give him money, and that would kind of absolve them of whatever evil that they, or whatever sin they had committed. So it's ridiculous, right? He's using his power and his influence to manipulate people and to take their money. And he doesn't really spend any time with the poor, the beggars, the lepers, all those people that he should be spending time with. Instead, he's associating with bartenders, barmaids, rich people, pretty girls. He's giving them gifts. And he's a bad person, right? He's greedy. He's immoral. He's described as wanton, right? As opposed to the monk who's, just not really cut out for monkhood. He's shallow and he's self-indulgent and things like that, but he's not as cruel as the friar is, to kind of do these things, where he, kind of refuses to do what it is that he's supposed to, and is, just completely out of his scope. So yeah, he really doesn't like the friar. Okay. So those are your very important pilgrims. What I want you to do in addition to these notes, so on the same Google Doc where you're taking notes, you're also going to write a paragraph. So you're going to just pick one pilgrim from the Canterbury Tales. It can be the one that you analyzed, or it can be one of the ones that I just did, or a different one. And I want you to discuss a theme or moral communicated through that pilgrim, right? Something that Chaucer is some lesson that Chaucer is trying to put forth based on this specific pilgrim. I want you to pull 2 or 3 quotes that prove that interpretation, and then you're going to embed that into your own sentences, right? Quotes cannot be by themselves, as we've talked about with Beowulf. They have to be put into your sentence structure. So they need some sort of introduction. So then you'll fill out this outline, okay? And then below that, you'll actually write the actual paragraph analysis, okay? And all of this will go in the same journal entry. So you'll have your notes on your VIPs, and then you'll have your pilgrim analysis paragraph, okay? If you've got questions, make sure you ask somebody. Thank you.